Jaron Boots Ennis has been one of boxing's most exciting rising stars in the welterweight division, amassing a perfect record of 35-0 with explosive knockouts alongside dazzling skills. And now moving up to 154 pounds, a division of deep shark-infested waters, he will need to be at his very best. So today in the ring, I'm going to take a look at the reasons behind the move up, his upcoming opponent, and I'll take a look at the possible big showdowns we could see in the future. So on that note, let's get right into it. After being elevated to the IBF champion, after Crawford vacated his belt, it wouldn't be till April 2025 he finally earned a world title by stopping Amantis Stanionis to claim the ring and WBA belts in a statement win at 147 pounds. Rather than linger in the division where he had some subpar performances due to the massive weight cuts, Ennis announced he would move up to the 154 pound division in search of the bigger challenges. I think it was also possibly a move that was partly born out of frustration. The unbeaten Philly man had never got the chance to face the top stars like Errol Spence Jr. and of course Terence Crawford, who of course moved up to junior middleweight shortly after that showdown with Spence. And Boots now found himself in a division that was in transition, and possibly got stuck fighting secondary contenders for the most part, as the big names and opportunities just weren't there anymore. And I think that's a big key. Ennis won't be draining himself to make weight, and the expectation is that he'll be even more formidable. Even in his most recent win over Stanionis, Boots' team still claimed he was very depleted going into it, and there's only so long he can keep fighting at the weight before it can seriously become a problem. Now in terms of Ennis' debut at 154, it's set for October 11th in his hometown of Philadelphia, where he'll face the little unknown Wisma Lima in a WBA title eliminator. And of course it isn't a big name fans would have hoped for. Lima, 14-1 with 10 KOs, is largely unknown outside hardcore circles, and naturally the news of Lima as the choice drew a lot of criticism from fans. Nevertheless, Lima has earned a reputation as a bit of a spoiler, with upset wins over 3 undefeated fighters across Germany, Canada and South Africa, while he pushed the talented Irish middleweight Aaron McKenna all the way in a tough 10-rounder. While Lima also brings the IBO title with him, showing that he's no total pushover and might surprise some of us come fight night. Nevertheless, I do imagine Team Ennis will view this as a stay busy stepping stone and a chance to get Boots acclimatised to the weight and satisfying his hometown crowd before putting him in the position for the much bigger fights ahead. And I do think if Ennis gets past this comfortably, he should definitely look for those big names at 154 pounds next, as it's worth remembering just how good he is. He's a switch hitter with knockout power in both hands, combining speed, skill and ring IQ that is well beyond his years and would give trouble for any opponent. But once again, I must stress, this division is full of sharks. Ennis will need every bit of versatility to navigate through it, otherwise he could just be eaten up himself. On that note, let's take a look at the potential future opponents in this division for him and how he could possibly get on. One of the most anticipated fights for Ennis, and one myself and most boxing fans dreamed about since they were prospects, is of course Vergil Ortiz Jr. And it is quite possible this matchup could finally materialise at 154 pounds, after never coming together at welterweight. Ortiz Jr. was a parallel rising star at 147, and a fearsome power puncher who, like Ennis, knocked out nearly everyone he faced. However, the circumstances with promotional divides, timing, and also Ortiz's health issues prevented this fight from ever really being a possibility. But now both men find themselves in the same division again and could very well be in a collision course. In fact, Boots promoter Eddie Hearn revealed that if Ennis is to win in October, this is the target for 2026. In terms of the fight itself, Ennis and Ortiz Jr. promises to be absolute fireworks in my opinion. Ortiz fights with an aggressive, intelligent pressure, along with having those heavy hands as he marches forward behind that stiff jab while setting up thudding body shots, looking to break down his opponent at any given moment. But also don't be fooled by that come forward approach. He has incredible ring IQ himself. While his knockout ratio speaks for itself, while even moving up in weight, he's continued to carry that fight-changing power with 21 knockouts and 23 wins. While he's already tested himself against some of the best in the division so far, picking up the WBC interim title, surviving a slugfest with Sergey Bohachuk, as he had to overcome 2 knockdowns in a Fight of the Year candidate, before in his most recent fight, outpointing the skilled Israel Madrimov over 12 rounds, who also gave Crawford a hard night at work as well. But those battles did show Ortiz's resolve, but also exposed some vulnerabilities within his style. As we know already, Ennis tends to outclass opponents with his speed, skill and well-timed explosive shots, and it could very well come down to who can just impose their style that little bit better. And for me, it's a bout that could elevate the winner to superstardom in my opinion. And in this division, this is arguably the nearest mega fight on Ennis' horizon, and hopefully this fight can also be for a world title one day. Next up, we've got the towering inferno, Sebastian Fundora, standing at 6'6" and an 80-inch reach. Not only does he manage to get down to 154 pounds, but somehow he chooses to fight like an inside brawler at times. That makes no sense, but that's what makes him so awkward and effective. Fundora throws nearly 70 punches around, as he looks to smother you and overwhelm you with volume, and if you decide to stand in front of him, you'll eventually get an uppercut or hook from an angle you don't see coming. However, to be fair to him, in his more recent fights, he started to show more boxing skills, trying to get behind his jab and looking to set up that powerful left hand from distance. For Ennis, and like most of the fighters in this division, it's one of the strangest challenges out there. He's never fought anyone of this kind of size and dimensions. If Boots lets him get off his game plan, Fundora can make it an ugly night. In fact, I think Fundora will make it a horrible fight for anyone at 154 pounds. However, Fundora continuously leaves himself open to wide hooks and overhands at close range, as we saw in his fight versus Lubin, while Brian Mendoza also knocked him out cold with this. Overall though, I just feel Ennis is the faster, sharper, more intelligent fighter, who would be able to expose those flaws at some point. But I have to be honest, I don't think this would be a pretty fight for Boots, and would have to come through some adversity at some point. But for fans, I think they would love it, as it would be absolute chaos. Xander Zayas is 21 years old and recently picked up the WBO title against Garcia. Naturally, becoming a world champion so young, he's being pushed as Puerto Rico's next superstar to follow in the footsteps of the likes of Cotto and Trinidad. And I think he's got the tools to get there. Zayas is the perfect size for this division, rangy, disciplined and very mature for his age, working behind his jab, picking his shots and setting up nice body shots while hardly making any mistakes. He's not a knockout artist, but he's sharp, accurate and he keeps improving with every fight. For Ennis, Zayas would be a different kind of challenge. Unlike Ortiz and Fundora, Zayas isn't as reckless, as he's a fighter that won't overcommit unless he's sure he'll land. And this could turn into a high-speed chess match with Ennis trying to break through with creativity, while Zayas trying to stay disciplined and consistent. Right now though, I'd have to pick Boots. He's faster, more experienced and more dynamic overall, but give Zayas a couple more years and seasoning. This could be an incredible fight to make. Next up, we have Israel Madrimov. He's tricky, explosive, and also unpredictable. He'll leap in with wild hooks, throw shots from odd angles, and make fights messy if he has to. Against Ortiz and Crawford, he managed to go the distance with both, and showed he could hang at the top level, but there was flaws defensively, while there also seems to be stamina issues as the fight goes on. For Ennis, this fight is all about focus. Madrimov can catch you with something you don't see. Boots would need to stay disciplined and not get drawn into the exchanges with him. But in terms of speed and IQ overall, I think Ennis just edges it in my opinion. But I'll say this, Madrimov is one of those fighters where you can look brilliant against him, or look very uncomfortable. He's maybe not the biggest name, but stylistically, he's a banana skin fight for anyone in my opinion, including Boots. Vergil Bohachuk is another one that brings a lot of problems to the table, including his aggression and knockout power, with 24 of his wins coming by stoppage. And just like Ortiz, he's very aggressive, heavy-handed, and he only needs one punch to change the fight. Hey, he even managed to knock down Ortiz twice, with many suggesting that he should have won that fight. Once again, this is a very similar matchup as it would be with Ortiz, and maybe this would be a good fight to take before going straight in with Ortiz eventually down the line. Might not be the biggest money fight for him, but it's the type of opponent that earns you respect, and if Boots is able to outclass and even stop a puncher like Bohachuk, can show he can handle the raw power as well as skill at this level. Before Conor Benn got that big fight with Eubank Jr, Boots Ennis was a name he was calling out constantly, and obviously is a big money fight due to Conor being such a big name in the UK now, as he looks to close the distance on his opponents and overwhelm you with his speed and spiteful combinations. And that kind of aggression can be dangerous for anyone. Nevertheless, it does leave himself open defensively at times, and something a technician like Boots Ennis could easily exploit. I think another factor is Ben would be undersized, even at 154 pounds. However, I still think it would be an exciting fight where Ben would give it everything to win. Not to mention it would be a brilliant build-up with a UK brawler trying to break down one of America's slickest rising stars, and would definitely generate massive interest on both sides of the Atlantic. And finally, we've got Background Murtazaev, a man nobody seems to want to fight, as he absolutely destroyed Tim Tszyu to win the IBF belt. And since then, you can see fighters looking the other way when his name comes up. Murtazaev is strong, technical and patient, and he doesn't waste his punches before he sets up traps to try to take you out. There's no glamour here, he's a very solid, dangerous champion. And for Ennis, this might be one of the most underrated, toughest fights in the division. Unlike with Fundora, there are no easy openings. Or Bohachuk and Ortiz, there's no defensive lapses. You have to beat him with pure fundamentals. And that's why this fight also intrigues me. If Boots is as good as we think, he would need to have his full display of skill to have any chance in my opinion. However, Murtazaev isn't a big name. I can't imagine fans will be calling out for this fight soon. Maybe in a unification fight down the line if Boots is able to snap up some belts in this division. So there you have it. Obviously there is some other names in the division such as Tim Tszyu or Keith Thurman, or even the possibility of Terence Crawford moving back down after his fight with Canelo. However, just like I said, this division is full of sharks with many different styles, boxing ability and punching power. Every one of these fighters has a set of problems that could potentially derail Boots' career. At 147, Boots never got the chance to prove himself against the likes of Spence and Crawford, but 154, there will be no excuses. These are tough fights for anyone. If Ennis really wants to be a pound for pound great, this will be the division where he proves it. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What fight would you like to see Boots Ennis in most? Or do you think there's a fighter that could cause a potential upset? I'd love to know. As always guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.